with the radio.com app. Download it today and listen to us anytime, anywhere. You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. The nation and the league arrive in Las Vegas in 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Good Sunday morning, Raider Nation. Hope you're doing well today. After a rough night in more ways than one. Of course, the big news with Raider Nation is the loss of Raider great number 21, Cliff Branch, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. Cliff dies at the age of 71. A shock to everybody, especially just a few days after his 71st birthday, as well as Alumni Weekend, and Chaz Osborne was up there. He'll talk to us about that in a minute. A couple things also, clearly last night in our country, too, the shootings in El Paso and Dayton. Our best go out to both of those cities who now are dealing with a horrific situation, just senseless violence. And so we want to remember those folks and all of them impacted, as it tears off a wound for us here in Las Vegas, clearly because of the October 1st shootings of a couple of years ago, where we lost 58 lives here on the Las Vegas Strip. So our best goes out to all of them as we keep them in our thoughts. And we are going to forge ahead and talk some Raider football. And as always on the show, I have a couple guys here who help me with it. And that, of course, is my co-hosts on the day and always. And one is Mr. Kelly Kreiner. Kelly, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing good. We have a lot of football to talk about, so I'm excited to get to that after all talking about all this bummer stuff. Chaz Osborne is back in the studio after being in Napa last week for training camp. We're just adjusting his camera. By the way, we are streaming on video this week. We were not live last week on video, but we are back. Chaz, you're back, man.
Yep.
You had a good time up there, huh?
Oh, man. Beautiful up there.
It was. And you had a lot of great stuff. Appreciate it. We had some phone issues with you last week, but at least we got that live.
Yeah, we got through it.
Yeah, we got through it, that live report there with everybody. All right, let's jump into, obviously, the topic of the morning, and that, of course, in Raider Nation is the loss of Cliff Branch. Cliff Branch's accomplishments on the field speak for themselves.
Yep.
4-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Super Bowl winner in 76, 80, and 83, all three of the Raiders Super Bowls. In his career, 501 pass receptions, 8,600 yards, almost 87, 67 touchdowns. He averaged 17.3 yards a catch, and he is just an amazing guy. And a thing about it for me, guys, with Cliff was in the last couple of years, got to spend some time with him. I don't want to make it sound like I knew him really well or anything like that, like some of the Bay Area reporters who've been around him for years and years do. But the time that I did spend around him, one of the things that always struck me was his desire to want to help in the community, number one, his nature, how nice he was to the fans, but also how he was so quick to talk about his teammates that helped him get where he was.
Yep. I don't want to say he was underrated, but he was just so unassuming. You know, he was just that guy, just year in and year out, just went about his business. And, you know, coming in, playing in the shadow of guys like Fred Biletnikoff and Dave Casper to start his career, and then later on you got, you know, Todd Christensen coming up, Marcus Allen taking a lot of his passes out of the backfield. And he wasn't one of those divas, a guy that complained and needed touches. He just went out, did his job, you know, and he was an even better human being. So that's to your point.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. And Kelly, when you talk about Cliff Branch from a football perspective, let's start with that. And Chaz touched on what a great guy he was, and we'll continue to talk about that. By the way, on today's show, Amy Trask, former CEO of the Raiders, will be with us. She'll remember Cliff Branch and tell us some stories, and I'm sure talk about his contributions from her perspective, as well as Jay Binkley, when our last stop in the Chiefs training camp, will tell us what to expect from Kansas City, the hated rival of the Raiders, and we'll take a look at that as well. So don't go anywhere. But, Kelly, from a football perspective, if you look at Cliff Branch, I mean, the term speed kills, which when I interviewed him here in the studio last year, I did the research. I found out John Facenda from NFL Films, who, of course, we've talked about too, coined that phrase, and it became his. And he really was. I mean, Kelly, you look at receivers today and the speed and the size, but if you look at Cliff Branch in the 70s and 80s when he played, what a remarkable athlete still would be today in my view.
Oh, yeah, he would still rank. I mean, he would still be up there with some of the guys we have today. He was, I don't want to say he was like the first one of those guys, but he was one of the original guys to where it was just, you find that guy that's just a straight speed demon.
Right.
And you find a way to get him the ball. You know, you hear it, you know, you said it's 17 yards a catch. And this is back before passing was what passing is today.
Right.
You know, people forget the game 20 years ago is a completely different game.
Yep.
You know, to have numbers like that back then, I mean, just hearing them out loud, because, I mean, I know what his numbers and everything are, but you just kind of forget about it. And that's partly because you said he's not the diva. When we see wide receivers and everything now, it's all the about me. It's
Give
all
me
the show.
damn ball.
Yeah, that's all we think of on a wideout. And unfortunately, those are the ones we remember.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of forget people like Cliff Branch or now a Larry Fitzgerald,
Yes.
who are just unassuming. They just go out and they just do their job, and they do it extremely well.
Well, and the thing about Cliff too, guys, that I found amazing every time I spoke with him, and we're going to play some clips from him later on, is how much he credited his teammates for his career and how well he did. You know, he told me, look, if it wasn't for Willie Brown and Mike Haynes, I wouldn't be who I was, because I went against two Hall of Famers in practice every day, and they helped me become the player that I was. And we're gonna talk later too in the next segment about the fact that that he's not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, yesterday was a gut punch.
Yeah.
For Raiders fans that brought back all the bad memories about Ken Stabler and what happened with him, because there's no way that Cliff Branch should not be in the Hall of Fame. And we can go back and forth with it. He's going to make the case himself when we play this clip here coming up after the break about that, because there's just no reason not to why. And he shares with us why he thinks he wasn't in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And now it's got to be posthumously.
I was watching the Hall of Fame, stuff last night a little bit when the news came down. And every year when I'm watching the Hall of Fame stuff, I can't help but think of Tom Flores and Jim Plunkett and, even Lester Hayes and, of course, Cliff Branch. And so the same thing last night. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about these Raiders. I'm thinking about 2020, how they're making these new rules. And there's going to be, 10 or 15 seniors on the list. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, I hope he's one of them. And then the news comes down and it's like, there you go again. Same thing like you said with the Ken Stabler news. It's just irritating. You got to recognize these guys while they're still around.
Yeah, you do. It's terrible. And again, Tom Flores still with us, and Coach needs to be in there as well. So I think that's going to be something we're going to go off on in a minute, because there's guys in the Hall of Fame that have lesser numbers than Cliff, have lesser championships, and so on.
Yep.
But, the statement from Mark Davis yesterday was very simple. He just said, look, he was my best friend. A lot of people, I don't know if everybody knows that, guys, but Mark Davis and Cliff Branch were very, very close. In fact, in 1979, Mark Davis became Cliff Branch's agent and had to negotiate with his own father. And Mark joked that Al kicked him out of the house for it. Apparently, he was still living at the house. And that's a funny story, and I'm sure we'll hear some more from Mark Davis, who I know really, every time I was around Cliff and Mark, it really was like they were brothers.
Right.
And so that's a very personal thing for him. But again, Cliff Branch, dead at the age of 71, 1972 fourth-round draft pick from the Colorado Buffaloes. He was a track star there as well, not surprising.
Yep.
With as fast as he was. But Cliff Branch, too, in Las Vegas, in the short amount of time, he was found dead in Bullhead City, Arizona, right down the road. I know he was planning, he told me several times he was planning on buying a house here. His house burned down in the 2017 Santa Rosa fire. He lost all his memorabilia except for his Super Bowl rings. Wow. Which I was fortunate enough to wear one, which was very cool. That's what a guy he was. He would just do that. He would let people wear his Super Bowl rings. He understood the special nature of it. But he is a guy who will be remembered fondly. And I think for Raider Nation, and looking at the comments on social media today from all of you, everybody's really upset about this one. On the heels of a season that I think people have a lot of optimism over, this is certainly a bummer for everyone involved. But
Yeah, you talk about the 3 Super Bowl rings that he got with the Raiders. There's only a small group of guys that got all 3 of those rings. I could think of Ray Guy at the top of my head.
Yep.
Ted Hendricks, and that might be it.
well, and
Dave Dalby, the center.
he's the only wide receiver to have 3 Super Bowl rings.
But just those 3 Super Bowl rings just with the Raiders.
Yep.
I think that's only those 4 guys are the only guys I can think of.
Well, and for us, Chaz, growing up
Right.
in San Diego and watching AFC West football our entire life,
Yeah.
the battles that they used to have with the Chargers, which they mostly won, and I remember watching Charlie Joyner and Cliff Branch,
Right.
of course, on opposite teams. And Cliff, obviously a great receiver, and Charlie Joyner also in the Hall of Fame.
Incredible. Yeah, I know.
Right. So how can Cliff Branch not be in the Hall of Fame? Anyway, but it was fun watching that time in football
Yeah.
and watching everything happen. So it's going to be interesting. But we certainly feel for all of you out there. I know Raiders fans are very, very upset this morning about Cliff Branch, and we share that with you as well. We're going to remember Cliff here in the next couple minutes. After we come back from the break, you're going to hear from Cliff himself, an interview we recorded here in the CBS Sports Radio studios last year prior to the big celebrity swing event out at Topgolf when Cliff came in and talked with us. It was a great, great time, and we'll share that with you as well as some more thoughts we have and on his snubbing from the Hall of Fame. On the way out, though, we're going to spend a few seconds and we're going to remember Cliff. We're going to go out with a little bit of silence in memory of him, and we'll come back right after this. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Some restrictions apply.
The Dodgers take on the Padres today at noon on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hey, this is Tim Brown, Hall of Famer. You're listening to Silver and Black Today.
That is Tim Brown, Hall of Famer, of course, from the Raiders. And we lost who should have been another Hall of Famer, and that is number 21, Cliff Branch. We're talking about the legacy of Cliff Branch, which we will be doing throughout the show. So it's not like we're not going to talk about it with some of our guests, including Amy Trask, former CEO of the Raiders, the first female CEO and executive in NFL history. She'll be joining us later, so don't go anywhere. But in the interim, we want to talk about Cliff Branch some more with all of you, too. So please call in at 702-889-5978. We'd love to hear your memories of Cliff Branch, number 21, Speed Kills, and what you think about him not being in the Hall of Fame, and also what memories you have most of him, whether they be on the field or off the field. Because as we talked about, guys, Cliff was so active in the communities in the Bay Area and here in Las Vegas already, and so we want to get your notes, because I've gotten a lot of photos on Twitter and in our social media channels from listeners who met him, got autographs, because Cliff was always willing to sign an autograph, always there for fans.
Right.
And now, Chaz, you were up at Alumni Weekend, and you saw him, and that's what he was doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys it's so great that they just come there, interaction with the fans. It's just such a fun time. And just to see him and see all my heroes, growing up, it's amazing. And, it's just, I'm speechless right now, because it's just one of those things that hits close to home. And, we talked about how unassuming he was earlier, but, there's some games I can remember, we're talking about him on the field and off the field. He did so many, that Sea of Hands game, arguably one of the best games in all of football history. And, that might not have been possible if it wasn't for Cliff Branch. He made a diving catch in the fourth quarter, and he wasn't touched. So he was smart enough to get up, run it 74 yards for a touchdown, and set up, what would have been the final play. And beating the Miami Dolphins, have been to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. And then the Raiders end up winning that game. And there were so many other games I can remember, when I was a kid on Monday night. He had all these big, the Raiders down by a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter. He has this huge play, but it kind of goes unnoticed because it wasn't the winning play. And he had so many of those different games where he was so instrumental in the comeback and the winning of the game, but, he wasn't recognized for it because his wasn't the actual winning catch or whatever.
Yeah, and Kelly, what about, you look at Cliff Branch and his career, not only was it long, it was with one team, but he also if you look at his playoff record, what he did in the postseason, where it matters the most.
Right.
We talk about modern guys like Phillip Rivers, who is a regular season Hall of Famer, but then in the postseason hasn't done anything. Cliff Branch did it all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Julian Edelman argument that popped up after the last Super Bowl, where people were saying Julian Edelman's a Hall of Famer because of what he's done in the postseason. Mm-hmm. And, that's laughable to me, because if you look at Edelman's numbers in the regular seasons, there's nothing. Yeah, he's had some good playoff runs. And you mentioned it was, it didn't drop off for Cliff.
Right.
You got the same guy in the playoffs that you got regular season. It was a consistency, which for like a big play guy like that is something you don't see that often. It's like you look at the guys he's kind of like a Deshaun Jackson kind of guy type like now, which is kind of an all or nothing with him. Mm-hmm. He might get 3 catches for 150 yards, but it's just 3 catches.
Right.
Cliff was more consistent than that.
Mm-hmm. He really was, and that's the thing. Consistency means everything, and to me, that's the one thing that I'll remember about him as well, which is it's one of those deals where we always look at guys from the past and understand that how great they were, but sometimes you have to look way back and understand. For a lot of Raider fans, this has not been something. You don't remember Cliff Branch. I'm old enough, you're old enough to do that, and it doesn't mean that they're not great. But I think for those, and we're playing some video, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscopes via Twitter, you can see some of the highlights, thanks to Raiders.com, of Cliff Branch and some of his teammates talking about him. But he really, truly was remarkable. If you haven't watched film of him, you should. And again, call us 702-889-5978 if you have memories you'd like to share of Cliff Branch as well. Also, just so you know, we do have and it just one of those weird happenings. We do have a Cliff Branch signed football that we are going to be giving away in coming weeks, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But Chaz, growing up a Raider fan for your entire life, Cliff Branch as a guy off the field, you talked about that a little bit, but your interactions with him over the last few weeks, how was that for you? I mean, not as a fan, but just as a human being. I mean, this guy really takes the time to talk to people.
Yeah, he does. I didn't get to talk to him up there at camp, but, I saw him interacting with the fans. And, just from a distance, you get that Raider pride, you well up a little bit. And to hear all the stories about all the community work, and like you said, he'll take the time to stop and sign an autograph anywhere. Just what an incredible person, and he's going to be missed.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Chaz. I think that if you look at Cliff Branch's contribution to the Raiders, to football, it's undeniable. And now we have, with this Hall of Fame class, Kelly, being increased for the 100th year. So going into next season, this class, it'll be a centennial class. They're going to double the size. If he doesn't get in, if Tom Flores doesn't get in, I don't see how you could legitimately defend that position. Could you? I mean, is there a legitimate reason for not putting Cliff Branch in the Hall of Fame?
Well, no, but there hasn't been when the class was small. That's my whole point. It's like, give me a reason he's not in there now. Let me hear that argument. If you're going to double the class or whatever, you giving yourself even less of an argument to keep him out. Same thing with Flores. The Hall of Fame is, you're trying to tell the history of a sport. You can't do that without Tom Flores.
It's automatic.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
Jim Plunkett as well.
It's ridiculous. I mean, and Kelly, do you think there is also a little bit? I know they were not technically those guys in the AFL, but is there still that bias against some of those AFL founding teams and the owner Al Davis?
Well, against Al Davis, yes. I don't think so with the AFL so much, because if you talk to most NFL fans today, like the younger fans, they have no idea what the AFL is. No, I mean, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so long ago at this point. If you tell somebody that, there was two leagues that kind of merged the way the AFL and the NFL did, you're going to catch people by surprise.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's true. But the loss of Cliff Branch, I think, is going to be tough. I think a lot of conversation last night around, will the Raiders do something on their uniform to honor him? Of course they will. On the uniform or the helmet, we'll see what happens. With situations like this, the NFL has these ridiculous rules about uniforms, and you have to do things a year in advance. But when somebody passes, they usually will have some sort of dispensation for that. So I would imagine that will do it. And I got to tell you, I'm really disappointed for Cliff and for the Raiders, because he did so much work here in Las Vegas preparing for this stadium to come to fruition, and now he's not going to be able to be here for it, which is a bummer. I know that he will be there in some form, in spirit, not only in spirit, Chaz, very well said, but also he'll be there in some sort of honor. I'm sure they'll have they're going to have player statues. They're going to have a Hall of Fame at both the headquarters and at the stadium. And so I would anticipate they will have something there too. But I'm interested to hear what Amy Trask has to say about him. Amy Trask is coming up here later in the show, former CEO of the Raiders. But the interesting thing, as we get closer to the bottom of the hour here, is that relationship he had with Mark Davis. Mark Davis was an only child. Cliff Branch, they forged that friendship and then a business relationship with one another. And they really were close. And even Gruden said he was rooming last year with Branch. I don't know if he was still doing it this year,
right,
but that was funny. So one of those guys, it's unfortunate, too. We're getting to the point in life where that golden age of Raiders football and those players, guys, they're getting older, and we're going to start losing them more and more. We've already lost a lot of them, unfortunately, for various reasons. We've talked about Lyle Alzado on the show. We've talked about John Matuzak, some of those guys who lost their lives due to other reasons. And now you're starting to see some of these guys who've been around that younger fans have gotten to know are also leaving us too. It's just one of those things with life. So
yeah, he touched so many people too. It's a shame. And you hear about all these old DBs and these older players. they were scared to go against him.
They were.
Yeah, I hear a lot of stories about guys that are like, man, Cliff Branch is just one guy you couldn't prepare for because he was just going to blow by you. You weren't with his speed. You weren't sure what he was going to do. He jukes left, goes right, and you're gone.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but I saw somebody. They had a quote from one of the old DBs back in the day. It said, "I gave him 17 yards of cushion, and it still wasn't
Right,
enough."
exactly. And you hear those multiple over and over. Those stories are great.
Well, we are remembering the life and the career and the good deeds of one Mr. Clifford Branch, number 21 for the Raiders, who passed away yesterday at the age of 71. I had some folks on our social channels asking us, how did he look the last time you saw him? I got to tell you, and I joked with him, and you'll hear in the interview later on. We were going to do it this time, but we'll hold it for a few minutes. He looked amazing. He looked like he could play today. So, and he still looked that way in recent weeks.
Yeah, he just had a vibrant personality.
Yeah.
He was just always uplifting, positive message.
And just a few days after his 71st birthday, he leaves us. All right, we're going to step aside for a break. When we come back, we are going to visit with Jay Binkley, our last stop on the Kansas City Chiefs and the AFC West tour of your training camps. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Las Vegas, Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hit from cornerback Bashaud Breeland. He was back on the practice field Friday. What are you hearing about his overall health?
Well, it was just a quad bruise, thankfully for him. But they had the day off yesterday, so you missed practice there on Wednesday. You had Thursday off, a couple days off. He got back out there today, was catching some passes there from Mahomes, but he's going to be fine. I mean, just a quad bruise. He left. The Chiefs have a big hill where the players walk down to the practice. So oftentimes you'll see player left in cart. Well, the Chiefs will take you with a hangnail in a cart because they don't want the players walking up this hill. So if you're in the front of the cart, it's much different than riding in the back.
Oh, sure.
And he was riding in the front of the cart. Again, they will drive people up this hill. They typically do anyway with some of their stars after practice. They'll drive them up the hill, and, the rookies will walk up or whatnot. But they'll typically do that. It was nothing to read into, but he appears to be just fine.
All right. Well, on the flip side of this, of course, another Chiefs player who has made big news over the last year, of course, is Patrick Mahomes. He was, in my view, the story in the NFL last year. Now, you hear, of course, that sophomore slump, and even though he's in his third year, you kind of hear about, well, geez, he hasn't looked as crisp in practice. I don't put much stock in that. You've been out there watching Patrick Mahomes. You've been around him, seeing what his demeanor's like. Are the Chiefs have anything to worry about, or does he look really just on track like he did last year?
They don't have anything at all to worry about. As a matter of fact, maybe the league should worry because he looks even better. He looks even better. There's some interceptions and stuff in practice, last year. And again, it's just practiced. And, everybody was like, oh, my God, Drew Lock played so bad the other night. This first preseason game. Let's chill out a little bit and let the guy breathe a little bit. But, no, Mahomes looks better. He's threw a 60-yard bomb today, rolling out, running around, doing the things that Mahomes does. His arm strength is unbelievable, and it's been on full display, and he's sharpening those skills. I mean, Andy Reid is the perfect guy to mentor Patrick Mahomes, and if there's any problems at all, which is hard to find problems with the guy going 5,050, Andy Reid will find it, and he's working on that and refining it. We saw the first year he started. Yes, Andy Reid will find those little things and make him better, but he looks better. And not only that, he off the field as well, where the team just ultimately respects Pat Mahomes. He's a genuine guy. He doesn't think he's better than his teammates. He's humbled. Heck, there was a rookie here, McCole Hardman, a wide receiver, that jumped in on Patrick Mahomes' first press conference coming to training camp because he felt good about doing it. No, I mean, that's something like he jumps in. Like, there's not going to be a rookie jumping in on an Aaron Rodgers press conference. Not a rookie is going to jump in on Tom Brady, but he jumped in on Mahomes, and Mahomes just had fun laughing with him. And then a player that was in the AAF, cornerback, was hurt on the practice field. Guess who went over there to see him before he was carted off? None other than Patrick Mahomes. He just kind of got the respect of his teammates, and now he's got the cereal out now, Mahomes Magic Crunch. The town is going nuts for.
Yes, I know. They have to swing by Hy-Vee and get a box of it, right?
They're going nuts.
Yeah. Again, we're talking to Jay Binkley from 610 Sports Kansas City as we tour the AFC West training camps. Our last stop, of course, is in Kansas City. And I said that last year, Jay. Raider fans, of course, don't like the Chiefs, but when you look at Patrick Mahomes, just a good kid. I was always impressed, and you and I talked about this last year as well on our show, which was, growing up in the environment he did with his father being a professional baseball player, he was around it. So when he got into the spotlight, it was nothing new for him. And so it's exciting to see what he's going to be able to do in his second year. Now, the big story in Kansas City last year, too, was the defense, right? The defense at times, especially towards the end of the season, actually played pretty well. But in the NFL, you don't need a dominating defense to win the Super Bowl. I mean, you look at the Patriots of 2016 and 2018, they were middle of the pack. The Chiefs go out, they make a change on defense, they get Steve Spagnuolo to come in. Talk to me about that defense, how it's looked, and what the mood and the kind of culture surrounding it, how it's changed since the leadership change.
Well, to be honest with you, I think that's the biggest story for the Chiefs. And I know people are sleeping on it a little bit nationally, still talking about the defense. Well, keep in mind, this defense was bad last year, but they were offsides away from being in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And, you lost by a combined 6 points to the Rams and the Patriots in the regular season. The Chiefs were not hammered. The problem is, here's the other thing, too. I don't know if Mahomes has ever played with a defense as good as this one. I'm not kidding. When he was attacked They were 128th out of 128 teams in Division I scoring defense. Check this out, Scott. I went back and looked at his high school, his junior and senior year. He scored 50 and 60 respectively and still lost. It's going to be an unbelievable, yeah. He throw 619 yards and still lost. He will have a defense finally for the first time, which means he's going to be on the field even more this season. But this defense has changed. Spagnuolo was off last year. He admitted to going to NFL Films and watching film. He's put together an all-star staff. Brendan Daly comes over here, a defensive line coach for the Patriots, 3 Super Bowl rings he had won with the Patriots. And not only that, but Matt House comes over. He was the defensive coordinator at Kentucky last year. And he's just a linebacker coach in Kansas City. This guy, in his college stops, had mentored Aaron Donald. In college, he had led the 6th best scoring defense in the nation last year when he was at Kentucky. Of course, Josh Allen's mentor there at Kentucky. And Kentucky wanted to keep him. And the Chiefs and Andy Reid had to get on the phone and make a deal with Kentucky because they wanted money, and which is ridiculous to hold a guy from jumping to the NFL. But Andy Reid wanted him, and Matt House will be a defensive coordinator and/or a head coach in this league someday, like Brendan Daly. But we've seen the offensive staff rated. You see Doug Peterson leave to Philly. See Matt Nagy leave to Chicago. This Andy Reid coaching tree, 25% of this league is made up of Andy Reid's coaching tree, and then Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, is the next guy. The defense finally has promotable guys outside of Kansas City, something they've been lacking. Spagnuolo, the one-on-one attention he gives to the players, not to mention the relentless energy of Frank Clark coming here, switching from the 3-4 to the 4-3 to set that edge. D Ford, people were saying, well, D Ford's not in Kansas City anymore. That's right. Frank Clark is a better player than D Ford. He's much tougher. He's a better football player and actually an intense guy that talks a lot of smack that will back it up. And then you bring the Honey Badger in for defense. He's got that Eric Berry-like presence for a leader. But this defense, don't sleep on him, Scott. Matter of fact, I think mid-November, people are going to be like, wow, Kansas City can actually play defense as well.
Well, and it's, of course, the Chargers are getting a lot of pub, and then the Chiefs, despite the fact that the Chiefs are still, in my view, the favorite to win the division and to go deep in the playoffs, the Chargers are getting a lot of that love, even with the holdouts and all that stuff. It's a little bit hard to understand, but again, that is a West Coast team in a major media market, and so maybe they're getting a little more love, despite the fact the Chargers don't get much love in Los Angeles at all. But if we look at this in about a minute that we have left with you, Jay, if we look at this Chiefs team, what one thing concerns you more than anything that could or has the possibility of maybe getting them a little off kilter and not performing up to where they should be?
Well, the weakest position group at this point, because they're so unproven, is the cornerback position. I do think it helps they drafted Juan Thornhill, the safety, in the draft. I do think bringing the Honey Badger here helps the secondary, but you still got to cover guys on the outside. Now, on the inside, Kendall Fuller, the Pro Football Focus gave the best slot grade 2 as a corner 2 years ago in Washington. Of course, part of that Alex Smith trade will make a difference. But I am concerned about the corners. Very inexperienced group. Even a guy that last year was on the practice squad, an undrafted guy out of Murray State, DeMontre Wade, who goes by B-Wade. Sorry, you can't do that yet, DeMontre. Has been filling in with the ones. But, yeah, the Chiefs, this should be their division still, even with that ineptness of the defense. The cornerback position. They have beaten the Chargers 9 out of 10 times. They're on a roll of, 7 straight against the Broncos. They've won this division 3 straight years. Yeah, I think once again the division will send Andy Reid a Father's Day card.
All right, Jay Binkley from 610 Sports in Kansas City with our look at the Chiefs in training camp. Jay, we will talk to you when the Raiders get set to take on the Chiefs. Appreciate you being with us today, buddy.
Always enjoy it, guys. Take care.
All right, Jay Binkley from 610 Sports Kansas City. We're going to step aside for a break. We'll be back here on the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
They say memories are made at the ballpark. Meet the boys in blue.
Well hit, on its way, and at the wall, it's gone! A walk-off home run from Matt Beatty. Fly ball to right, on it.
Sports Radio 1140.
You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. Apologies, our interview there recorded with Jay Binkley. We lost a few minutes. And, guys, that interview gave us a good overview of where the Chiefs are as we completed our tour of the AFC West training camps, just to see kind of how the rivals of the Raiders are doing and what they've done in the offseason to either get better or get worse. So Jay was with us, and what we missed there, guys, and we'll talk a little bit about the Chiefs in general, what we missed there was the conversation I had with Jay, because Jay's been out at Chiefs training camp the whole time. So he's been there in the locker room with the team, with other journalists, everybody, just seeing what's going on. I asked him about Tyreek Hill, right, because that's one of the subjects that everyone's talking about, because I'm going to say 98%, if you take out the 2% because they're Chiefs fans, were shocked that nothing happened to Hill based on all the incidents off the field, although he was not prosecuted for them, we might say.
Right.
But he said, because I asked him the question, Jay, are the Chiefs distracted by this? Is it a problem for them, or has the community and has the team, more importantly, rallied around Tyreek Hill? And he told me it's the latter, that the Chiefs players, fans, administration, coach, everybody loves him and has come to his defense. Now, you might say, well, why? That's not unexpected. We haven't seen that. We didn't see it with Kareem Hunt. We haven't seen it with other players. But, Kelly, the fact that Kansas City, who has a history of seeing players do terrible things, is able to look the other way on this, at least from a concerned standpoint, and really rally behind him. What does that say?
Well, you said the key word right there. You didn't mean to, but you said seeing. We have video of Kareem Hunt, so they can't deny this.
Right.
They brought in Frank Clark, who's got a history of domestic violence accusations. I'll throw that out there. And the Tyreek Hill is like, there's no video of it being thrown on TV every 4 minutes.
Right.
So they can get away with this. Like, well, we don't know what happened with Kareem Hunt. You saw it.
I think from the Chiefs front office perspective, they said Tyreek Hill was up front with them and told them everything that happened, whereas I guess Kareem Hunt lied. And then when the video came out, obviously it proved that he lied. And so that's where the differential is, where Tyreek Hill, basically told them everything.
You don't believe that, do you?
Well, why else is...
No, Tyreek Hill he's a better player at a harder to find position. The running back position is easier to find than it is a wide receiver.
And we talked about it. Why did the running back position become disposable?
Well, it's not that it's disposable. It's just easier to find a replacement for a Kareem Hunt than it is for a Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is a generational talent. Kareem Hunt is a really good running back.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. What time are we living in that and I got to be honest with this. I am torn a little bit on it. If you look at Tyreek Hill's history, to me, you can be suspect of it because of his history, right? But at the same time, he was not prosecuted. If the evidence was strong enough for a court of law, then he would have been under arrest. The problem, and I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth on this because I just go back and forth on it. My problem with it overall, though, is how the league has handled it. Because the league, for folks who have had lesser accusations leveled at them, suspended them.
Right.
So the fact that Tyreek Hill didn't even get a lowly 2-game suspension, to me, guys, is a bigger issue because, yeah, fans are going to rally behind their guys. I get that to a certain degree. And even when they're accused of bad things, people always look. I mean, prisons are filled with guys whose mothers think they're innocent, right? And so when it comes to beloved athletes, I think the same principle applies. Chiefs fans are going to do that. Now, other teams don't seem to be as tolerant of activity like this. But for some reason, Kansas City is, even though they've put out this public face that, we're never going to deal with this again. We're never going to deal with domestic violence issues. But certainly they have it. You would think that they would have instituted, if they could, through the Players Association, their own suspension of the player just for causing the issue that he caused.
Right.
But there's been nothing. But the fact that the Kansas City fans and the team have rallied around him, Kelly, as pessimistic as it is, or as you would say, realist as it is, it's about football. It's about winning games, and Tyreek Hill makes them a much better team.
Yeah, I mean, and it's
the same thing you talked about. They need him. There's one of the marquee franchises in the league going forward, and losing a guy like that takes him down a few pegs, right?
Yeah, and it's like I said, they're a team. They got a Super Bowl window right now. They've got their rookie quarterback, which is the most valuable asset, is that quarterback on a rookie contract.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like their window is now, and they are not going to do anything to, that they will make sure they do everything they can to. Because if you win a Super Bowl, nobody thinks about this stuff.
Yeah, no.
You only
goes away with winning.
You remember the parade. You don't remember how you got there.
That's right.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, and as Jay Binkley said, you could talk about how bad the Chiefs' defense was last year, Kelly, but at the same time, they were just a play away from making the Super Bowl. When you look at what the Chiefs did in the offseason, they clearly improved on defense. Have they improved enough? Because the Patriots proved in 16 and 18 that you just need a middle-of-the-road defense to maybe win the Super Bowl. Are they there? Do you think they have that middle-of-the-road defense now that will help them get to the promised land?
It's still bad. The cornerbacks are terrible. Like your secondary's good.
Yeah, and Jay said that.
Not your secondary. Your safeties are good, but your cornerbacks are trash.
Right.
Your linebackers are going to have issues. Defensive line's really good, so that's going to help out the corners. But Mahomes isn't throwing 50 touchdowns again. There's going to be regression there.
It's not realistic.
We saw it at the end of the season when Hunt was gone and they got a little bit of tape on him. His numbers started to come back down to normal.
Right.
He could still throw for 5,000 yards and 36 touchdowns and have a great season, but that's 14 touchdowns. That's one a week less.
Yeah.
And if you take one score away from them a week, they're not. Their record's a couple losses more.
I'm with you on that. I feel like the Chiefs regress a little bit. I know you asked him, Jay Binkley, about the sophomore slump, and he said that he looks even better than he did before, and there won't be a sophomore slump. And I know they brought in Steve Spagnuolo and the other defensive coach from Kentucky, and traded for Frank Clark. I still think the defense is going to be below average, and if you don't have a good balance in this league, it's tough to win those big games.
Well, and I agree with you guys, although I don't think they're going to fall that much back. I agree with you that they're going to have to sack the quarterback a lot to win, to save that, because the cornerback position is still weak for them. I mean, adding Honey Badger and and Clark to the line, great additions. But to me, I still think they win the division with 11 games, and the Chargers second with 10.
No, I agree. I was going to say, when I said they fall off, they still win the division.
Yeah.
And this Charger thing with Gordon could be interesting.
Yeah, I don't think the Gordon thing really, because they're backups, right? They're going to be Eckler.
Yeah, go look at Eckler's number when Gordon doesn't play. Eckler's numbers fall through. They just fall through the floor when he's the main guy.
I think he can
Justin
step up.
Jackson's your backup there. Let's hop on that kid. You know where he went to school, don't you? So obviously he doesn't know anything about football.
Well, I just feel like the Chargers will win the division. They're going to start off, 9-1, 10-2, and just cruise to the division. My opinion.
I'll take that action.
Okay, we got that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I hate to say, last team I want to pump up is the Chargers, but I feel like just their foundation. Out of the teams in the division, they've got the strongest foundation right now.
Well, and that seems to be the case for them all the time. Again, as I said earlier in the show, they just don't seem to get off the schneid when it comes to postseason and win those big games. Now, to me, though, I do agree that the Chiefs, it's hard to maintain what they did last year. But, again, they were able to outscore people. I think Mahomes is not going to have a slump. I think, will he do what he did last year? No, but that's not a slump, right? He was ungodly.
First quarterback ever to throw 5,050. Probably not doing that again.
Yeah, not going to happen. All right, well, we're going to step aside for the top of the hour, and we're real excited. When we come back, we're going to be joined by former Raiders CEO Amy Trask, also affectionately known from all of you, the Raiders fans, Raider Nation, as the Princess of Darkness. She'll be with us in just a minute. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Triple-digit temperatures mean it's pool and lake season. This is Las Vegas Fire Chief William McDonald reminding you.
Moose tomorrow, 6 Eastern.
Warm up with the weekend's top sports stories and headlines. Join The Rotation, Sunday mornings at 10 on CBS Sports Radio 1140. You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. The nation and the league arrive in Las Vegas in 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas, the future home of the Raiders. And we are still all in shock at the loss of Cliff Branch. And we have with us now on the phone someone that we've wanted to get on the show for a long time, and we're just so excited to be able to welcome her on the show. And that, of course, is Amy Trask, former CEO of the Raiders, current CBS Sports analyst, and also the CEO of the Big Three Basketball League. Amy, welcome to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I, too, have been looking forward to joining you for a while, and it is under sad circumstances that we begin our show, our conversation together today.
Yes, it certainly is, and losing Cliff, like I said earlier in our show, Amy, with the move to Las Vegas and the Raiders coming to Las Vegas, I did not have the pleasure of being around Cliff a lot, except for the last couple years, and he was incredibly active already, as I'm sure you're not surprised here in Las Vegas. When you look at Cliff Branch, and I know you spent so much time with him and around him, talk about his legacy both on and off the field.
Well, you're right. I'm not surprised by how involved he already was in the community. I was not with the organization during the heyday, if you will, of Cliff's time on the field. But my experience working with Cliff once he was off the field was tremendous, and that's a tribute to Cliff. There was never, ever a time, not one single moment, when I asked him to visit with a fan, spend a little bit of a time with a fan, engage in an event with a fan, attend a community event, a fan fest. Never a time that he said no. And that stated poorly. I'm not doing a good job explaining that, because it wasn't simply that he said yes. He was eager. He was enthusiastic. He was willing to do whatever it was that was asked of him in terms of fan interaction, community involvement, interacting with our business partners and sponsors and all of the team owners. So I'm stumbling for words because I find myself getting a bit choked up as I speak. But I worked with Cliff off the field, and it was my privilege and pleasure to do so.
Yes, and again, just an incredible loss for all of Raider Nation and the fans. And Amy, you are so close and so great with Raider Nation, with the fans. They absolutely love you, and it's because you treat them so well. You talk to them via social media and, of course, in person when you're around them as well. For them, you can see this, and I think a lot of the issue, too, was it was going to be tough no matter what if you lose somebody like Cliff Branch, but his omission from the Hall of Fame, along with Coach Flores and others, I think it came like a gut punch, I've been calling it, to Raiders fans, because this is just a few years after we saw the same thing happen to Kenny Stabler. Talk about that, and why do you think, Cliff felt, he told us, he said he really felt it was because of Al Davis, and not that he was bitter towards, obviously, Mr. Davis, because you know that, but he really felt like he was paying the price because Al was such an innovator and such a maverick. Do you agree with that?
Well, if I may, I'm going to answer both pieces of your question, and I apologize ahead of time. Actually, I won't apologize. I'll just tell you. Tell me to shut up if I'm talking too much. But I want to address the question you raised with respect to Cliff, but then I want to say a few things about the fans. As to Cliff first, it's just so painful when men belong in the Hall of Fame to see them enshrined after they pass away.
Yeah.
This is a moment that people should be able to enjoy during their lifetime. And boy, oh boy, what a reminder of that Cliff passed away on the day of the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It's such a poignant reminder. Let us celebrate these men while they're alive so that they may celebrate as well and enjoy the moment. And at some point down the road, if and when Cliff gets in, well, wow, he should have been able to enjoy that moment, just as, we've realized with other Raiders and other men who've gone in. I'm not going to speculate as to why people do or don't get in. The Hall of Fame has a system. There are many critiques of that system. Some people like it, some people don't. Maybe it's my law school training, but I'm not a big fan as to speculating to other people's motives.
Right.
If I may, and I'll ask you as a question, can I address the portion of your question that involved the fans?
Of course, Amy. No, please go.
People often say to me, wow, Amy, it's really terrific that you spend so much time interacting with fans. And I heard that throughout my career as well. Well, what's terrific is that the fans want to spend time with people in the organization. Yeah. The credit belongs with the fans. The kudos belong to the fans. There is no NFL as we know it today without fans. And this is a discussion I had with Al throughout my career. There is no league as we know it without fans. So, I appreciate when people thank me for spending time with fans, but I thank fans for spending time with me. The credit belongs to the fans. I had almost 30 years in an organization. Those 30 years or almost 30 years were full of incredibly special moments. Some of the most special were those spent with fans. And, I recall one day pregame on the field, the president of another team said to me, Amy, I always see you in the stands before the game, and even during the game. I see you wandering through the stands, and you do it when we play you in Oakland, and you do it when you come and play us at our home stadium. Why do you spend so much time with fans? Why do you do that? And I looked at him, and I said, why don't you? I have never, ever understood, and I never will understand those who have the tremendous privilege and pleasure of working within the football, a team, the league, who don't cherish fans.
Hey, Amy, I was actually up at training camp last week, and like you said, now they're allowing the fans there and the interaction with the players and the alumni, and that's just a tribute to you. Seeing all the helpers, they're handing out water, they're making sure all the fans are just engaged and hydrated, and I just felt like it comes full circle, and it just makes it so much better and so much more fulfilling for the fans. You're correct.
Well, a very sad moment in that regard, because I pleaded with Al every year, let us open camp, let us open camp, let us open camp. And I would plead with him about other things with respect to the fans. And his response to me was, you can do that when I'm gone. And I would say to him, don't even talk to me about you being gone.
Right.
But I am thrilled that the fans are able to enjoy these opportunities. I'm thrilled that I was still there when we were able to open the doors. I'll tell you, one of my very, 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 very favorite pictures of me in the whole world is me feeding water to a dog.
Right. I've seen that.
We got to hydrate the pup.
Yeah. Yes.
Not just the people.
Yes, we got to take care of everybody. We're talking, of course, to former Raiders CEO Amy Trask. Now, Amy, you talked about Al, and of course, infamous for his military-like strategy and mindset, and that included, like you said, not allowing practice. He was very particular about those things. So now we fast forward to this year, and the Raiders are starting on Tuesday, going to be on Hard Knocks. Tell me what you think of that. You've been a little bit outspoken on that. What is your view on Hard Knocks? Now, the Raiders didn't have a choice, we might add, at least not without Al Davis around. And is that good for the team, good for the brand in rebuilding mode? And what would Al have thought about that?
Well, I'll answer that in reverse order. I shared with Richard Deitch of The Athletic, and he printed it. what Al would have said to me had the league called with that dictate. I will not say on air what I shared with Richard that Al would have said to me because I don't want to impact your standing with the FCC. but yeah, that would have been a moment. The element of Hard Knocks about which I have been very, very outspoken is the practice of cutting players on camera. I don't have an issue with Hard Knocks in general. The one issue, or the one thing that they do on Hard Knocks with which I take issue, is ending a man's dream on television. Whether you are a rookie or a year out of college and your life's dream is coming to an end, you may have dreamt your whole college career and high school career of being in the National Football League and it's coming to an end. Or maybe you're the seasoned veteran that's been on a team for a long time and now it's the end of your career. You should not have to experience that moment on television. And when I share this, people are quick to say to me, well, Amy, there are so many privileges that go with being an athlete. I understand that. Heck, I signed the checks. I understand that. But that said, the one issue I take is I don't think someone should have their dreams and their hopes dashed on television. Other than that, I think it's a terrific show. And I hope that the fans enjoy a rare glimpse into some things they wouldn't otherwise see. And, as to the concept that people say, well, it's a distraction, I'll share with you my views on distractions, but I want to let you know this is not a new view. This is not something I have come to since leaving the organization and joining CBS Sports or the Big Three. This is something I said throughout my career. Shame on you, shame on us if we call something a distraction. We have the privilege and the pleasure and the opportunity of working in the National Football League. People in life have real distractions and real issues. Stop labeling things as distractions. They become distractions if you allow them to be distractions. I remember on a team flight home, one of our coaches having an absolute meltdown with me because we didn't have the right kind of candy bars on the team flight. And this man was carrying on about what a problem it was that we didn't have the kind of candy bars. And I just looked at him and I said, if you are letting the kind of candy bars that we do or don't have on the plane become this big of an issue, we've got a problem.
Oh, my goodness. Again, we're talking to Amy Trask. And Amy, thank you so much for giving of your time today on this Sunday. Just a couple quick questions. And because, again, you are an analyst for CBS Sports, what should fans make? Should they be concerned about Antonio Brown and that situation up at camp right now with him in his feet and not being at practice?
I don't have access, obviously. I'm stating the obvious. You don't. We don't have access to the actual medical reports. We haven't spoken with the doctors or the trainers. So I don't know whether there should be a concern about the condition itself. But is it great that he's not practicing? No, it's not great. New team, new quarterback receiver combination. Of course you want players at practice. But that said, he is a spectacular player. He is, by all accounts, one of the hardest workers there is. He has every ability to catch up very, very, very quickly. So without knowing the extent of the issue or how it may affect him on an ongoing basis, I'm not going to comment more. But, do you want a player to miss practice? No.
No, of course.
Is he so good that he can easily catch up? Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, Amy Trask, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to have you on. I know your time is going to get much more limited as the season rolls around, but we hope to have you on again. I'd really love to talk to you another time about diversity in the NFL, especially when it comes to more women in leadership positions. We didn't get to touch on that today, but I would love to spend the time. Thank you so much for joining us, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
I would love to join you again. Right now is the 1 month overlap between the Big Three and the NFL season. So it's a crazy month, but once we reach our championship, it'll just be football for a while, and I look forward to joining you again. The privilege and pleasure is mine.
All right.
Thank
Amy
you.
Trask, former CEO of the Raiders and now CEO of the Big Three. And, of course, you can catch her. She's amazingly great on CBS Sports as an analyst. Make sure you catch her on Sundays. We're going to step aside for a break. When we come back, we roll on with the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Today at noon on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hey, this is Eric Allen. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
All right, Eric Allen. We haven't heard that rejoin, as we call it in the biz, in a long time.
God bless him.
Oh, we got some bass. Slap the bass. All right. On a morning when we need some levity, after what happened last night with Cliff Branch, of course, and with, again, our best out to the people of El Paso, Texas. We have listeners in El Paso who've been posting on Facebook, and as a city who's gone through something similar, we don't like that you're in that club now, but our best goes out to you and to the folks in Dayton, Ohio. All right, well, we're remembering Cliff Branch this morning. Of course, we have to. We want to. Such a great part of Raider history. And Amy Trask, what a great guest, guys. I mean, she was phenomenal.
She's awesome.
And to hear of her memories of Cliff and what he used to do. And I love how she talked about how he just never said no when she had a request for a sponsor or a fan or whatnot. Yep. And that just tells you, again, what kind of guy he was.
Yep, speak to his character.
Okay, well, what we're going to do now, I want to share with you an interview that we did with Cliff back last year before the Celebrity Swing here in Las Vegas on CBS Sports Radio 1140 here in the studio. He came in the studio. He was amazing. He let us wear his Super Bowl rings. And it was just a great, great time. So we want to share with you that interview to take you back a little bit. So we're going to put you in the time machine with number 21, Cliff Branch, so you can get a sense for what he talks about. And I like this interview, too, because he talks about why he believes he's not in the Hall of Fame, and he also makes the case for his coach, Tom Flores. Here is our interview with Cliff Branch. Welcome back to the Silver and Black today, and this morning, we are just overjoyed to be joined by a true Raiders legend in Cliff Branch. And let's just go over these numbers because they're mind-boggling to me. 14 years, Cliff Branch was an Oakland and Los Angeles Raider. His entire NFL career in the Silver and Black. 3 Super Bowl rings, of course, 11, 15, and 18. Only one of 6 Raiders with 3 Super Bowl rings, and the only wide receiver with 3.
That is so true.
Yes. That's right. And also, I mean, the numbers, Cliff, are amazing. 501 receptions, 8,600, almost 8,700 yards, 67 touchdowns. And when you retired, you led the NFL in postseason receptions, 73 receptions, 1,289 yards, 17.7 yards per catch in the playoffs. That means that when it's money time, you're there. You were there.
Yeah, I was moving the chains, that's for sure. we were never short on first downs.
And I always remember one of the favorite I think moments in your career for me was I think one of the, if not the greatest regular season game against the Redskins in 1983 when Jim Plunkett threw you a 99-yard touchdown pass, which was actually longer than 99, but of course the NFL counts it from the 1-yard line, right?
It should have been 99 and a half.
That's right. I want to ask the question first. How the heck are you, Jim Plunkett, Tom Flores, and then we're talking to a gentleman later in the show, Phil Villapiano as well. How are you guys not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, Mr. Davis, a lot of people didn't care for Mr. Davis because he was an innovator in every aspect of his life. He was always the first. He was a true pioneer in everything that he did in his life. So there was a lot of resentment against Mr. Davis when he wanted to move the team from Oakland to Los Angeles, and you always had to get a vote. He took the team anyway. He didn't need no vote, you know. When we moved back, he had to get the vote. It wasn't no vote. He's doing it. So he was a pioneer, and he was a man with true conviction, and he was going to do it his way, and he always did it his way. So a lot of sports writers resented that, the power that he had. And then you think that his whole resume, I mean, being a commissioner, you know, bringing the NFL and the AFL together, he was part of that. So he had a lot of power, and a lot of people didn't think you should have that kind of power that he had.
Well, and I still have faith that it will happen and the right things. I mean, you've been a finalist, so you're right there. And then, of course, Coach Flores is such a good man and was a great coach, and he deserves to be there. Just as Al did with the team, right, with forging a way with diversity. You look at Tom and being the first Hispanic quarterback, and then, of course, being head coach to win the Super Bowl. So I have hope that him and Jim Plunkett and yourself will be there in the near future.
Well, Coach Flores was my receiver coach. I made all pro under him as his guidance and his teaching me as a receiver. And then you think Tom has 4 Super Bowl rings. He has 1 as a player, 2 as one as assistant coach, and 2 as a head coach. He has 4 Super Bowl rings. I mean, a lot of these Hall of Fame coaches that are in the Hall of Fame, he beat them. Yes. So how do you not give him his due. So he's well deserving too. Well, I like to look back when I was making All-Pro, making the Pro Bowls and stuff. I was first team All-Pro three consecutive years, and then Pro Bowl 4 straight years, and then on the Pro Bowl team, Lynn Swan was always backing me up. So I was always the starter, and he was the backup. So that's another point right there I like to bring up.
And you can also go to RaidersFoundation.org where you can get more information as well. So that's really great. And Cliff, again, just thank you for coming in. And we look forward to seeing more of you here in Las Vegas as the team gets closer. And I know how active you are in not only the Raider Foundation, but other charity work that you do. So thank you for all that you've done off the field as well.
Well, I'm part of the alumni, so when the Raiders reach out to me, I'm always available for the Raiders and stuff like that, because we are all about family, and the Raiders love their former players, and because we built this thing to where we are today, and John Gruden is going to bring something special to the Raider organization, because we will have a Super Bowl one day in Vegas, and we hope to be playing in that Super Bowl.
Of course, Raider legend Cliff Branch. Cliff, thank you again for coming in.
Well, thank you for letting me come in and get the message out.
All right, Cliff Branch, Raider great. And again, don't forget the Celebrity Swing Wednesday, May 9th. All right, there you go. That was a little bit of our conversation with Cliff Branch last year. Of course, we lost Cliff Branch yesterday at the age of 71. So, guys, not surprising if you hear that interview, just as everybody has said and as we've been talking about today, just a great guy. I was fortunate to be able to talk to him and have him come here to the CBS Sports Radio studios. And now it's going to be about ways to remember him. And I think we talked about earlier, Chaz, the Raiders will do something to honor him, whether it's a helmet decal or a patch on their jersey. But something's going to happen this year, and it's just too bad we have to say goodbye so soon.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely will do something. Yeah, he's one of the all-time great Raiders. I mean, he was the one constant in all 3 of those Super Bowls. And just to have a guy like that on the field and off the field, there's no way they won't do something to honor him this upcoming season.
But Chaz, like I said earlier, and you heard it there in that interview, again, he was making more of a case for Flores and Plunkett, especially Flores, to get in the Hall of Fame than he was for himself.
That's just the kind of person he was right there. He's not selfish at all. That's what I was talking about earlier in the game. You know, you've got all these great receivers, and then it was kind of his time to shine, and he wasn't demanding anything. He wasn't saying, give me the damn ball. You know, he was just going out and doing his job, and that's just the kind of person he was. Let everybody else take the credit, and
that's right.
He'll be missed.
He will be. All right, well, we're going to pay some bills, step aside for a minute. When we come back, oh, yes, it's your favorite time of the day. It's Kelly's Corner here on Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140.
only way to take Silver and Black Today with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. And no, we are not really good at just sitting still. If you're watching us on the stream, our wide camera, so the camera that shows the whole studio, was like frozen in time. And I was telling Chaz, and what did you say, Chaz?
One of those challenges,
the
right?
mannequin
Doing
Well,
the mannequin
no,
challenge.
you said, damn, I look good, though.
You froze me in a good spot. Usually
All
I
right.
don't.
Welcome back to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. It is the time in the show where most people put away the women and children.
I thought you were going to say turn off the show.
Yeah, well, that too. But and here's a man who I don't have to worry about which pronouns to use to call him. Mr. Kelly Kreiner with Kelly's Corner. Take it away, Kelly.
Okay, so Thursday night, for all intents and purposes, the NFL season has started. Right. You know, we got the Hall of Fame game in. We have actual football action, which, as someone who likes to, you know, put a buck or two on a game here or there,
wager.
I get to listen to this stupid argument every year that betting on preseason football is bad. You know, Trey Wingo put out a tweet saying if you've bet on it, you need to get into a program because you don't know who's playing, you don't know how the game's being called, etc. He is 100% wrong on this. He doesn't know how the game's going to be called or who's playing because he's not following this. Right. He's got a million other things to do at ESPN. Why would he? What people need to realize is the people that gamble on football, some people don't like preseason, some people love it. I love it. I've made money on the last 9 preseasons. I'm 2-0 starting off this season with a little luck from this. And people ask, well, how do you do it? It's like everything else. You have to put the time into it. If you look into it, you know that Atlanta is now 0-9 in their last 9 preseason games because they don't care.
Right.
They want to get through without getting hurt. That's all that matters. You know, for some reason, Pete Carroll loves preseason football. He's winning games at a 67% clip. Mm-hmm. John Harbaugh, same thing in Baltimore, 67% clip. That you follow trends, you follow these things, and you can bet football. Just because I know this doesn't mean I have a gambling problem. It doesn't mean that I need to get into a program.
Debatable.
And with state-by-state acceptance of this, more mainstream media are going to have to pull their head out of their behind and realize what this gaming industry really is.
Well, and not only that, Kelly, but his own network, which now has gaming programming.
Yeah, right.
So I get, you know what, if you're not into gambling, I got no problem with that. Like some people just don't like it. They don't believe in it. Totally fine. Just like some people don't believe in smoking cigarettes. Some people don't agree with smoking pot. They don't agree with drinking alcohol. Totally fine. But when you come on and say that it's stupid to do it, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, if he sat down with Doug Gazarian, who hosts the show on ESPN, UNLV grad, he would learn more about it. But I uninformed opinion. So many people are full of uninformed opinions, and they just spout it out. And you know what? Everybody's offended by everything today, right? Mm-hmm. In this case, what you're just saying, though, is, listen, I'm not offended. It's just you're not talking from a place of knowledge, correct?
Yeah. It's if you're going to throw that out there, know what you're talking about. You know, but of course, no, you don't have to do that anymore to get your opinion out there. I'm proving that on this show on a weekly basis. But there's a reason that when I walk up to the counter to bet on the preseason games, if I'm lucky, I can get 1,000 on a side, 500 on a total. During the regular season, I'm getting 10 times that if I wanted at any sports book in town.
Right.
Because they know the people that are betting preseason are the sharper people, and they're just going to get cut up if they have open limits on stuff like this.
And to your point, the preseason lines aren't as sharp, so you can take advantage of that.
You saw a 5.5 point move on that game.
Right.
And with as little action as they're taking, that's all sharp money doing that.
Right.
So you can't tell me that everybody just happened to pick one side without not knowing what they're doing.
Right.
You know, it is preseason it is a little more volatile. Yes. It is a little harder to handicap. It is. But it's easily done. It's just people don't I know who the third string quarterback is who's playing for Atlanta. I know who the backup linemen are that are going to be playing. I know the rookies that are getting time. But more importantly, I know the coaches that care about this and the ones that don't. And that's the biggest thing when you look at it. And Atlanta's showing that. Because 0-9 straight up, you would accidentally win a game if you cared at all.
Yes.
Right?
But the thing there, too, is I think he inappropriately looks at it, or incorrectly, I should say, looks at it from the perspective of a fan who gets frustrated watching the preseason when you have fourth stringers going in there, right? But again, it's gambling, so you're taking risk. There's no question. Just like real estate is gambling, by the way. But what you do is, if you have the knowledge and you have the data, you're making a calculated risk based on a set of information of years and years of data. Right. So to say that it's stupid to do it, or that you have a gambling problem if you bet on preseason football, is just plain out ignorant. I agree with you on that. I like Trey Wingo outside of that. I don't have an issue with him besides, but again, as someone who lives in a gaming city, and I'm not a big gambler. I gamble on football, yes, very small time compared to people who really gamble for a living. But to me, it's just, again, ignorance. I think as it spreads across the country as it is, I think we'll see better informed opinions.
And it's not. I mean, it's not. I don't want to sit there and say like Trey Wingo's the only. I mean, it's the common thread you hear this time of year from all kinds of media and everything. You know, that it's the normal.
Yeah, not just him.
If I'm in a sports book and somebody's like, "You bet preseason," it's like I just spit in their face. I mean, they're looking at me like I'm insane, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, preseason. I mean, it's definitely bettable." Like I said, I've made money on it year after year. Yeah, I know several people that will bet preseason more than regular season, which to me that's just insane because you've got 16 weeks of regular season to gamble on. You only got 4 in the preseason.
Right. Way more betting there.
It's a way to build a bankroll. But I mean, it's harder work, and most people that are in gambling are recreationally doing it, and they're too lazy to do all that stuff for the small little outcome that's coming out of it. You know, you're talking about somebody who is a professional, somebody who's really into it, to be able to sit there and handicap preseason football.
Well, and not only that, Kelly, but you also have the fact that you in the preseason, for example, we know with most teams, the first unit will come out in the first quarter. There may be a drive or two until you get to game 4, and then they might play a little more, may play a half, right?
Game 3 is the dress rehearsal where you get game 4. If you're playing in game 4, it's your last game of your career.
But my point, for those people who aren't experienced at gambling on football, for example, you can bet first half, you can bet first quarter. There's all types of things that you can bet as well, not just the game. And so that's where he misses out on it too, because I think smart players look at that too, and you're not going to get a lot. I mean, one drive is one drive, but you know you're going to get at least your second unit in there in the first quarter, right? And some of the action, it's not big action, of course, in the preseason on quarter bets, but it's there.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't even look at halftimes for preseason. I mean, I'm a side to total full game.
Full game, yeah.
You know, but I mean, it's like I said, you have to know. It's like if you're look at the Colts game this week, Andrew Luck's not playing in the Colts game this week.
No.
You know, but Jacoby Brissett's one of the best backups. You know, how much is he going to play? Not much. You know, you're going to see some people out there you don't know. And that's what that's why people don't like it. That's what they don't get into, you know, because there'll be a player to a name I'll hear in the fourth quarter of a preseason game. I'm not even sure exactly who it is.
Chaz, are you betting on preseason football?
Well, it depends on how much Mike Glennon's going to play in that game.
You're not a fan of Glennon.
Nah.
Gruden had good things to say about him yesterday.
Okay, maybe he's been better. I saw,
Gruden has a surprisingly good preseason record as well. He's one of them. And, well, it's funny because the Raiders always had great preseasons when they had bad seasons. Like they'd be 4-0 in the preseason.
Right.
They start off 1-6.
Yeah, and that's telling you what preseason does. You know, same thing with the NBA. You know, and I'm on board with the Atlanta Falcons. I'd rather lose all the games, make sure everybody's healthy, everybody knows what they're doing going into the season, because these preseason games. Yeah.
You're not installing anything in these games. It's as I made the comment the other day because a friend of mine who's Mormon, as like the preseason offenses are more vanilla than a Mormon wedding.
Oh boy. Okay, the phone number is 702-889-5978.
Well, like I said, I did it to a friend of mine that's Mormon.
Of course,
he thought it was funny, but it's like, but yeah, nothing's coming out. I mean, But you know that going in, you can handicap that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know nothing's getting played.
But like you said, there are some coaches that are a little more diligent. They want to get.
That's like the easiest bet I've ever won in my life was Steve Spurrier's first game when they played in Japan, because he was an underdog.
He's big in Japan.
Big in Japan.
Yeah, he was an underdog in his first game as a pro coach in an exhibition against the 49ers. If you thought he was losing that game, you're out of your mind.
Right.
Yeah, you don't know the man. No, interesting discussion. I think that gaming across the country continues to grow. So most folks, and you know what, if you're really into football, you were already betting, even if you were in a state where it was illegal.
Right.
Let's face it. We're going to definitely see more of that as we move along. All right. We're going to step aside here for another break. When we come back, we're going to close out the show, talk about camp, talk about Antonio Brown, talk about how you can join us in London for the Raiders versus Bears, and also a new sweepstakes that we have that you can win some money. Yes, on football. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
They say memories are made at the ballpark.
What is my favorite baseball memory? The first time that I went as a child with my pops, and just the experience itself. I mean, unforgettable.
But the game right now is at the plate. High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
Create 162 new memories with us this season. Your exclusive Las Vegas home for the National League champion Los Angeles Dodgers. CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Sign up today for a new William Hill Nevada mobile sports account, and you can earn a $50 bonus on top of your original $50 or more deposit using promo code GET50. That's promo code GET50. The William Hill Nevada mobile sports app allows you to bet on the go from any iPhone, iPad, or Android device from anywhere in Nevada. Sign up today and you'll never miss another bet. With the largest wagering menu, the mobile sports app features live in-play betting on football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, and tennis. For more information, visit williamhill.us. That's williamhill.us.
Triple-digit temperatures mean it's pool and lake season. This is Las Vegas Fire Chief William McDonald reminding you to stay safe around water at all times with a few helpful tips for the season. Grown-up supervision means grown-ups that know what to do in an emergency. Make sure someone in your group knows CPR because every second matters. Together, we can make this the summer of safety. Brought to you by these fine sponsors.
City of Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, Dignity Health, St. Rose Dominican Hospitals, and Southern Nevada Toyota dealers.
Driving is freedom. The freedom to keep moving, to control your destiny, and to choose your path. And now, that freedom fits in the palm of your hand. It's called Ford Pass, the only app that gives you roadside assistance, Ford Pass rewards, and now when you buy or lease a new Ford, earn points you can use toward flexible complimentary maintenance that gives you, well, more freedom. Ford Pass, built to keep you moving, built Ford proud. Visit your participating Ford dealership to find out about getting flexible complimentary maintenance when you buy or lease a new Ford and sign up for rewards.
Roadside assistance is included for certain Ford owners and available to everyone for a per-service fee. Ford reserves the right to change program details without obligations. Visit your participating dealer or FordPassRewards.com for program rules and restrictions. Ford Pass, compatible with select smartphone platforms, is available via a download.
In the Army National Guard, family means everything.
They really appreciate what she's done as a sister as well as a soldier and, supporting their country.
Our parents, they were really supportive that all 5 of us would join.
Family members that are soldiers in the Army National Guard inspire and influence, setting a path for others.
It's validating knowing that, I kind of did my part to make sure this is what they actually wanted and that they feel the same way I do. I'm really proud that we get to help shape the future, and I know that my sisters are going to be amazing soldiers.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard instills pride that you and your family will share in.
A lot of pride, and they're just out there doing something every day and then serving their country as well.
I got my education because of the Guard. I got to travel a little bit and experience a whole different culture.
Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Nevada Army National Guard. Aired by the Nevada Broadcasters Association and this station.
Triple-digit temperatures mean it's pool and lake season. This is Las Vegas Fire Chief William McDonald reminding you to stay safe around water at all times with a few helpful tips for the season. Always remember that pool inflatables are no replacement for life jackets. They're toys and should not be treated as water safety devices. Together, Together, we can make this the summer of safety. Brought to you by these fine sponsors.
City of Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, Dignity Health, St. Rose Dominican Hospitals, and Southern Nevada Toyota dealers.
The Dodgers take on the Padres today at noon on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
All right, welcome back to Silver and Black Today. Here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 as we get ready for the home stretch, close out the show here. And a shout out to our good friend Ed Marshall in Alaska who's having spotty Wi-Fi. He's asking if we're going in and out. But no, Ed, I think it's you, man. It's the moose. What's the plural of moose? Moose.
I was saying it, moose.
Yeah. All right. But we're back here talking Raider football. We're going to talk a little bit about camp. First, I want to talk to you about London. London2019.silverandblacktoday.com. Join us. We're going to London. The three of us.
Yes.
We're going to spend a lot of time in pubs. We're going to spend a lot of time on the air talking Raider football. And, of course, going to the game. We want you to join us starting at $999 for air and a hotel. Plus, you can also get your tickets. Just visit London2019.silverandblacktoday.com. We want you to go along with us. We're really fired up about that. The other thing we have going now, and you can find this on our Facebook page, sweepstakes, the Silver and Black Today Charity Mania sweepstakes. You can see the address on our video, or you can go to our Facebook page and click and buy a ticket digitally, or if you're in town here in Las Vegas, you can buy one. I'm holding it up to the camera now. This is really cool. 17-week sweepstakes. Card costs you $20. You get 3 teams each week. The total number of their scores determine your score. You can win $400 a week, $17,000 grand prize for the season. There's second place, third place, and even $25 finisher prizes up to $12 every week. Also $50 for lowest score, $25 for runner-up. The good thing about this, too, is a portion of the proceeds are going to the Javonte Woods Childhood Asthma Foundation. Of course, we had Icky Woods on. We're going to be live from his tournament on September 7th, I believe it is, or 8th.
Right.
8th. 8th. We're going to be live from his tournament as well, guys. So make sure you do that. You can, if you're in town, any of us can get you a ticket. If you're out of town, you can buy them digitally right there on our Facebook page. Takes you right to a website, and you can do it there as well. So thanks for all that. All right, guys. Raiders camp. Let's start with Antonio Brown. The feet, the ugly feet issue.
Oh.
Besides blisters or whatever the heck it is, are either one of you concerned long-term? I'm not concerned that he's missing practice. The guy's in amazing shape. Now, chemistry in the locker room, we talked about this before camp started. That's the bigger issue to me, is guys just being around in camp. Kelly, I'll start with you. Are you concerned overall with what's happening with him?
I'm not yet because, I mean, when you're that good and you, like I said, you don't have to worry about him being in shape. We all seen him. He's in shape. And you're going to hear, well, there's a difference between play shape and being in shape.
Right.
Not at a certain point. When you're in such a good shape, it doesn't really matter. The chemistry issue, though, is something that you're going to have to – I don't worry about that as much as some people will. But, I mean, it is – you are missing time.
Yeah. We don't worry about it until it starts affecting the regular season.
I was going to say, but right now you've got, 4 weeks to worry about.
Right.
Yeah, you do.
If he doesn't play at all and starts to bleed into the regular season – then you've got an
It's
issue.
a different conversation. Yeah. But, I also like the fact that it's given a lot of these younger guys an opportunity. And, we're getting to see.
Thanks, Coach Gruden.
Oh.
That's exactly what he said.
That's right. I mean, but it's true.
But it's true, right? Talk about Williams. You were up there. What did you see?
Oh, Tyrell Williams is great. Such a positive, just the guy's just energy, and he's going. And talk about talent. I mean, the talent level across the board was just elevated, with all due respect to Jordy Nelson and Dominic Rogers-Cromartie, I love those guys. But I did say with all due respect, the talent level this year
Which means you have none at all.
The talent level is way more elevated this year than it was last year. But
you're burying the lead, man. According to my Twitter timeline, Hunter Renfrow is Jerry Rice.
The guy has not dropped a pass yet. I'm not saying he's Jerry Rice, but man, what a great addition he'll be. Just somebody to have there as a check down or relief or emergency or whatever we need him for. He created space for himself. He was getting open, and everything that was in his radius was just being caught and going. So, overall camp, just great energy. I already got a sense of the camaraderie between the players. So if we're talking about, the team, building this chemistry, I felt like it was already there. And you had a lot of guys that you talk. Derek Carr said yesterday in his interview that he's talking to the DBs, and the guys that don't usually talk to other guys are getting together, and everybody's sharing kind of information, and so you could really feel that already.
Well, and the Hunter Renfrow stuff is, and a quick shout out to our buddy Raider Mike. But I want to say that I think the Hunter Renfrow stuff, I get it. He's one of those guys that just remember how Ed McCaffrey was when he played for the Broncos, and he was just one of those guys who just seems to always be
for the Rams
Cooper Kupp for the Rams.
That's what I feel like.
Except for those guys are fast.
Hey, I don't care. If we can catch the ball and get us a first down to move the chains, that's all that matters.
That's too funny, man. But yeah, I think also, to me, there's some gamesmanship going on here. Not only the normal stuff you see in the NFL, but also because of the show. Remember, Hard Knocks starts Tuesday night, 10 o'clock. And guys, I think the Hunter Renfrow stuff, I thought Josh Jacobs would be the poster child, and he still may be. We'll see how it all pans out. But I think the legend of Hunter Renfrow already, a lot of media are talking about him. He looks great in practice. They've just put on the pads in the last week, and they haven't seen live action. When he starts seeing live action going against, for example, next week, the Rams and their defensive backs, we'll see how he does. But it'll be interesting how that all pans out. But are you guys excited for Hard Knocks?
I'm not. I think it's stupid. I really do.
This is why people love Kelly.
Tell us how you really feel.
I hate reality TV because it's fake. It's that they can take anything they want and form any show they want. This isn't real because they're shaping their narrative.
Right.
And we saw it in the Cleveland one where they were basically doing everything they can to make Marvin Lewis look like an idiot, which, if you follow him, is not hard to do.
Yeah.
But, they were just pressing that thing, and every single thing they were doing was just trying to put a rift in that whole coaching staff.
Well, and maybe it's because I've been, and I know, Chaz, you've been around too. I've been around a lot of television, production. But I've seen a lot of reporters too say, "Oh gosh, I can't believe how much of it is, actually staged, and not staged, but it's kind of created, right? Staged, whatever you want to call it."
Yep.
And I'm not surprised by it at all. That's why I don't like reality television myself. Now, Hard Knocks will be interesting. We cover the Raiders, so to me, it's going to be fun to see. But I do think that it's for people to get an insight, it'll be fine. I agree with Amy Trask, though, to see guys get cut and to see their dreams end.
That show's trash.
That's trash.
We got Kelly's trash in.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be fun.
I didn't watch Hard Knocks. I haven't watched. I've seen a couple clips here and there over the years, but I've never watched the full. But, the more Raiders, the better for me. So I'm really looking forward to it. That's no doubt. And I think that's how fans look at it. It's just a great way to get the preseason through. All right. For Kelly Kreiner, for Chaz Osborne, I am Scott Colbranson. You have been listening to the Silver and Black today. We will be back. We'll talk about that first episode of Hard Knocks, baby, when we come back next week. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Everybody, please go out. Have a great week. And our best to the Raiders and the Cliff Branch family. We'll talk to you next week. Same time, same channel. Bye, everybody.